The galactic warning. Commander ZX Thar of the Andari Collective stood before the holographic display, his crystalline exoskeleton pulsing with anxiety. The image before him showed a creature that had haunted his species' nightmares for 3 generations. A Viridian Death Serpent, its scales shimmering like oil on water, fangs dripping with neurotoxic venom capable of dissolving a being from the inside out. This, he announced to the assembled diplomats in the Nexus Station's Grand Conference Hall, is why Earth must remain quarantined. Ambassador Thelia of the Korath Empire leaned forward, her 3 eyes widening in recognition. The feathered crest along her spine flattened in instinctive fear. She had lost colleagues to these creatures during the ill-fated Viridian expedition. Impossible, she breathed. The Death Serpents are native to Viridia 7, a planet we've classified as uninhabitable. How did they reach Earth? They didn't, ZYXthar replied, manipulating the hologram to show comparison data. According to our xenobiological analysis, Earth evolved its own variants. Not just one species, hundreds. The humans call them snakes. A collective shudder rippled through the chamber. Representatives from 47 different species shifted uncomfortably in their various seats, perches and suspension fields. Dr. Keseth, a Luminar scientist whose bioluminescent skin flickered nervously, pulled up additional data. Our preliminary scans detected specimens ranging from 30 centimeters to over 9 meters in length. Some possess hemotoxic venom, others neurotoxic. Several species can unhinge their jaws to consume prey twice their size. One variant, the humans call it a black mamba, can strike multiple times in seconds, each bite containing enough toxin to kill a dozen Luminar. And the humans? Asked Trade Coordinator Mivron, his gelatinous form quivering. Surely they've developed protective protocols? Elimination programs? ZYXthar's mandibles clicked in what his species considered grim amusement. That's why we're here. Observer Talsindra, please share your reconnaissance footage. The lights dimmed. A 3-dimensional projection materialized in the center of the chamber, showing a human habitat, what their databases identified as a suburban home, in a region called Australia. A young human female, designation unknown, appeared on screen. She walked through grass that would terrify most species with its dense coverage, perfect ambush terrain. In her arms she cradled 5 death serpents of varying sizes. By the eternal void, whispered Ambassador Thelia. The human was smiling. Actually smiling. She pressed her face, her unprotected face, against the largest serpent's head, making soft cooing sounds the translation matrix rendered as affectionate nonsense. This specimen, Talindra's voice narrated, identifies as McKenna Chen, age 19 standard years. The creatures she's holding include 2 ball pythons, 1 carpet python, 1 corn snake and 1 boa constrictor. According to intercepted communications, she refers to them as her babies. Mivron's entire body rippled in distress. This must be some form of mental illness. A neurological defect unique to this individual. We thought so too, ZYXthar said. Show them footage Delta 7, Talindra. The scene shifted to what appeared to be a massive gathering of humans in an enclosed structure. Hundreds of them milled about, and every single one either carried death serpents or was actively seeking to acquire them. This is what humans call an expo, Talindra explained. A social gathering specifically designed for the exchange and celebration of serpent ownership. Our surveillance identified over 3,000 individual death serpents at this single event. The humans were trading them, discussing their care, comparing their aesthetic qualities. A tall human male appeared on screen, grinning widely as he draped a 3-meter serpent around his shoulders like some kind of ceremonial garment. The creature's head rested calmly near his jugular vein, the most vulnerable blood vessel in the human neck. Dear gods, Keseth muttered, his light dimming to almost nothing. They're not afraid at all. Worse, ZYXthar said. They actively seek them out. Our data suggests that millions of humans voluntarily house these creatures in their personal dwellings. They purchase specialized containers to keep them comfortable. They regulate temperature and humidity for the serpent's benefit. They spend significant portions of their currency on food, live prey in many cases, to nourish them. Ambassador Thelia's crest had gone completely white. The humans are keeping death serpents as companion animals? Like the Korath keep shimmer beetles? Precisely. The chamber erupted in multilingual chaos. Delegates shouted, whistled, clicked, and buzzed their objections and disbelief. ZYXthar waited for the tumult to die down before continuing. This is only the beginning of our findings. Earth doesn't just harbor death serpents. Our scans have identified creatures that match or exceed threat levels of apex predators from 17 quarantine death worlds. And in every case, the humans have domesticated, befriended, or actively chosen to coexist with them. He pulled up another image, a massive creature with powerful jaws and armored hide, lounging in what appeared to be a human dwelling while a small human child used it as a pillow. They call this a dog, Zuexthar said quietly. It's descended from pack hunters that once competed with humans for prey. The humans domesticated them. They live in 67% of human households. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Trade Coordinator Mivron spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. What kind of species are these humans? Zuexthar's eyes gleamed in the dim light. That, my colleagues, is exactly what we need to determine before we decide whether to make first contact. The human representative. 3 months after the Nexus Station debate, the Galactic Council made an unprecedented decision. They would send a delegation to Earth, not to announce themselves but to observe more closely. And, controversially, they would attempt limited contact with a single human to assess the species' suitability for galactic citizenship. Dr. Keseth volunteered to lead the mission, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his fear. Joining him were Talindra, whose reconnaissance skills were unmatched, and a young Andari named Arwaxpel, who had studied human culture through their electromagnetic transmissions, what the humans called television and internet. They chose to make contact with Dr. Isadora Vex, a human xenobiologist who had published extensively on reptilian species. If any human could bridge the gap between their species, it would be her. The landing site was carefully selected, a remote research facility in a region called Costa Rica, where Dr. Vex was conducting fieldwork. The delegation's ship materialized at dawn, its cloaking field dropping to reveal a modest vessel that wouldn't terrify the human. Isadora Vex was 34 years old, with dark skin, coiled hair pulled back in a practical bun, and eyes that held both intelligence and warmth. When she emerged from her cabin and saw the alien vessel, she didn't scream or flee. Instead, she grabbed her tablet and began taking notes. Keseth appreciated the scientific mindset immediately. When the delegation descended the ramp, Isadora approached with caution but not fear. She held up her hands in what Arwaxpel had identified as a peaceful gesture. I'm going to assume you have translation technology, she said slowly. Welcome to Earth. I'm Dr. Isadora Vex. Though I suspect you already know that. Keseth's bioluminescence flickered in surprise. You're remarkably calm for someone experiencing first contact with extraterrestrial life. Isadora smiled. I've been watching your ship's energy signature since you entered the thermosphere. You didn't try to hide that part. I figured if you wanted to harm me, you'd have done it already. Plus, statistically speaking, first contact was inevitable. I'm just lucky, or unlucky, enough to be the one it happened to. She paused. Can I offer you coffee? I'm guessing you've studied our biology enough to know what's safe for you to consume. Over the next hour, Isadora sat with 3 alien beings and calmly discussed the Galactic Council's concerns about Earth. She listened without interruption as Keseth explained the Death Serpent issue. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment, then began to laugh. I'm sorry, she said, wiping her eyes. I'm not laughing at your fear, that's entirely valid from your perspective. It's just, you came all this way because you're concerned about snakes? Your species coexists with creatures that have caused mass casualties on other worlds, Talindra said stiffly. This is not a laughing matter. No, you're right. Isadora composed herself. Let me show you something. She led them down a path to her research station, a building surrounded by dense rainforest. Inside, climate-controlled rooms housed dozens of terrariums, each containing serpents of various species. Keseth's skin went completely dark with fear. Arwaxpel instinctively activated his defensive carapace hardening. Talindra's hand moved to the weapon she'd insisted on carrying. Isadora noticed their reactions and stopped. They're contained. Perfectly safe. These are rescue animals, specimens that were injured or illegally captured. I rehabilitate them before releasing them back into the wild. She approached one terrarium containing a vibrant green serpent. This is Luna, an emerald tree boa. She was rescued from the illegal pet trade with a respiratory infection. She's almost ready to be released. Isadora opened the enclosure, and the serpent immediately wound around her arm with fluid grace. Keseth couldn't help himself. He scanned the creature with his bioanalyzer. Constrictor species. Powerful enough to crush his crystalline structure. Heat-sensing pits that could detect him even in darkness. Why, he asked. Why do you not fear it? Isadora stroked the serpent's scales gently. Fear and respect aren't the same thing. I respect Luna's capabilities. I understand her behavior, her needs, her instincts. She's not evil or malicious, she's just a predator doing what evolution designed her to do. And honestly, she's beautiful. Look at this coloration, the way she moves. She's a perfect example of natural selection. But she could kill you, HFY pointed out. So could a car accident. Or a bacterial infection. Or a dozen other humans if they chose violence. Isadora shrugged. Life is inherently dangerous. We humans decided a long time ago that the risk was worth the reward. Living in fear of everything that could hurt us would mean never experiencing anything that makes life worth living. She returned Luna to her enclosure and faced the delegation directly. I think I understand your confusion. You see predators and think threat. We see potential for coexistence, for understanding, for companionship. It's not that we're fearless. We're just adaptable. And maybe a little crazy. A little? Keseth muttered. Isadora grinned. Okay, maybe more than a little. But here's the thing. Every species you're afraid of sharing the galaxy with? They're afraid too. Fear is universal. What makes humans different is that we've learned to work through our fear, to find common ground with creatures that seem incomprehensible to us. She looked at each of them in turn. If we can befriend Death Serpents, as you call them, imagine what we could learn from you. The demonstration. Keseth found himself returning to Earth repeatedly over the following weeks, always to meet with Isadora. Each visit challenged his understanding of both humans and the creatures they lived alongside. Today's demonstration, however, might prove too much even for his scientific objectivity. You want us to what? HFY's translator crackled with disbelief. Isadora stood in her field gear, sturdy boots, canvas pants, and a shirt with multiple pockets, looking entirely too enthusiastic. I want to take you into the rainforest, show you snakes in their natural habitat. You can't truly understand our relationship with them by only seeing captive specimens. Absolutely not, Talindra said flatly. The risk assessment is unacceptable. The risk assessment is why we're doing this, Isadora countered. You need to see that we're not reckless. We're informed. There's a difference. After considerable debate and against Talindra's vehement objections, Keseth agreed. They would venture into the rainforest for exactly 2 hours, and Isadora would demonstrate proper human protocol for Death Serpent encounters. The rainforest was unlike anything the delegation had experienced. The Andari preferred sterile, climate-controlled environments. The Luminar came from a world of bioluminescent fungi and crystalline caves. This place was chaos incarnate, every surface covered with life, every sound a potential threat, humidity so thick it felt like drowning in air. Isadora moved through it like she belonged there, which Keseth supposed she did. First rule, she said, her voice low but clear, watch where you step. Snakes don't want to encounter you any more than you want to encounter them. Most bites happen because someone stepped on or cornered an animal that felt threatened. She demonstrated, placing each foot carefully, using a walking stick to gently disturb vegetation before proceeding. The aliens mimicked her movements, though HFY's crystalline legs clicked loudly against stones. 20 minutes in, Isadora froze. She held up one hand, a gesture they'd learned meant stop immediately. There, she whispered, pointing to a branch at eye level. Keseth's bioscanner went haywire. The serpent was perfectly camouflaged, its green and brown scales rendering it nearly invisible against the foliage. His database matched it immediately: eyelash viper, highly venomous, potentially fatal to humans. Bothricus schlagilii, Isadora said softly. Beautiful, isn't she? See those modified scales above her eyes that look like eyelashes? That's where the common name comes from. The serpent's tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Its heat-sensing pits swiveled toward the group. It knows we're here, Talindra said, her hand on her weapon. Of course she does. She's probably been tracking us for several minutes. Isadora took a slow step backward, gesturing for the others to do the same. We're too large to be prey, and she's in an elevated position where she feels safe. As long as we respect her space, she has no reason to strike. They moved around the Viper, giving it a wide berth. Keseth noticed how Isadora's movements remained calm and deliberate. No sudden motions, no signs of panic despite being meters away from a creature that could kill her. Second rule, Isadora continued once they'd passed. Understanding behavior prevents conflict. That Viper is an ambush predator. She's waiting for prey to pass below her. We're not prey-sized, so we're not interesting to her unless we become a threat. They encountered 3 more serpents that morning. A massive boa constrictor stretched across the path like a living rope, at least 4 meters long. Isadora simply waited for it to finish crossing, explaining that trying to move it would stress the animal unnecessarily. The boa's muscles rippled beneath its scales as it propelled itself forward with surprising speed. HFY calculated the constriction force those muscles could generate and shuddered. The fourth encounter was different. They heard it before they saw it, a sharp, rhythmic buzzing sound that made every instinct Keseth possessed scream danger. Isadora's expression changed immediately, becoming sharper, more focused. Okay, this is important. That sound is a rattlesnake, specifically it's a warning. The snake is telling us it's here and we're too close. This is good communication, not aggression. She located the source, a heavy-bodied serpent coiled beneath a fallen log, its tail vibrating to produce the buzzing sound. Its triangular head tracked their movement, and its body was tensed into a striking S-curve. Third rule, Isadora said, her voice steady despite being within striking distance. When an animal warns you, listen. This rattlesnake is doing us a favor by advertising its presence. Many snakes won't give warning. She led them in a wide circle around the rattlesnake, explaining that the sound carried far enough to give ample warning to anyone paying attention. The key, she said once they'd reached a safe distance and the rattling had stopped, is mutual respect. These animals aren't out to get us. They're just trying to survive, same as any species. When we respect their space and understand their signals, coexistence is not only possible, it's the norm. Keseth processed this as they walked back to the research station. The humans hadn't conquered their fear of death serpents through superior technology or protective equipment. They'd done it through knowledge, patience, and a genuine appreciation for these creatures' place in the ecosystem. On my world, he said quietly, we would have eradicated such threats immediately upon achieving the technology to do so. Isadora looked at him thoughtfully. We tried that in some places. Turned out the snakes were keeping rodent populations in check. Remove the snakes and you get plagues of rats that destroy crops and spread disease. Everything's connected. Ecological balance, HFY said. We understand the concept theoretically. Understanding it theoretically and living it are very different things, Isadora replied. That's what I'm trying to show you. We don't just tolerate death serpents. We need them. The cultural exchange. The delegation's report back to the Nexus station caused immediate controversy. Ambassador Thelia demanded to see the footage herself, certain that Keseth had been somehow compromised. It's not possible, she insisted, watching Isadora calmly bypass the rattlesnake. No sentient species would willingly expose themselves to such danger without protective equipment or weapons. And yet, Keseth replied, they do. Regularly. With full knowledge of the risks. Commander ZYX studied the data with his usual analytical precision. Dr. Keseth, you've labeled this as calculated risk management, but the calculations seem fundamentally flawed. The humans gain nothing tangible from these interactions. That's where you're wrong. Keseth pulled up additional files. I've been studying human culture more deeply. Their relationship with death serpents, and other dangerous fauna, is woven into their psychology, their mythology, their very identity as a species. He displayed images from human history, ancient temples decorated with serpent motifs, healing symbols featuring snakes wrapped around staffs, creation myths where serpents played crucial roles. The caduceus, Isadora had explained during one of their talks. 2 serpents around a staff, symbol of medicine and healing. In our mythology, snakes represent transformation, rebirth, wisdom. They shed their skin and emerge renewed. We saw that as metaphor for human growth. HFY had been particularly fascinated by human storytelling. He'd accessed their entertainment databases and found hundreds of narratives featuring serpents. Some as villains, others as allies, many as misunderstood creatures deserving compassion. This culture, he reported to the council, doesn't just acknowledge danger. They've integrated it into their worldview. They tell stories to their young about facing fears, about finding courage not in the absence of fear but in acting despite it. Trade Coordinator Mivron's gelatinous form rippled with confusion. This sounds like ritualized exposure to trauma. Why would they deliberately frighten their offspring? Preparation, Keseth said. Earth is a high-threat environment. The humans evolved numerous strategies to survive it, including teaching their young to assess and manage risk from an early age. He showed footage from what humans called a zoo, a facility where dangerous animals were kept in secure enclosures so that humans could observe them safely. Families with young children walked past exhibits containing crocodiles, bears, big cats, and yes, numerous species of snakes. The children pressed their faces against the glass, fascinated rather than terrified. Parents explained the animals' behaviors, their adaptations, their importance to ecosystems. They're creating positive associations, Talindra observed, her tactical mind recognizing the pattern. Introducing controlled exposure to override instinctive fear responses. Exactly, Keseth confirmed. And it works. Studies show that humans who have positive early experiences with Earth's fauna are more likely to support conservation efforts, less likely to kill animals out of fear, and more capable of rational decision-making in dangerous encounters. Ambassador Thelia's crest slowly began to regain some color. So they're not insane. They're highly adapted to a dangerous world through cultural programming. More than that, Arwaxpel interjected excitedly. I've been analyzing their literature, their films, their art. Humans have something they call biophilia, a hypothesis that they're innately drawn to other living things, even dangerous ones. They don't just tolerate death serpents. Many actively love them. He pulled up interviews from Isadora's colleagues. Dr. Marcus Reeves, a herpetologist from Australia, spoke passionately about the elegance of snake locomotion. Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Japan described the meditative quality of observing serpents' patient hunting strategies. A Brazilian researcher named Dr. Caio Santos waxed poetic about the intricate patterns of viper scales under magnification. These humans, Arwaxpel said, have turned what should be mortal enemies into subjects of artistic appreciation, scientific inquiry, and emotional connection. It's unprecedented in our galactic records. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over them. Finally, Ziwaxthar spoke. If humans can form these bonds with their planet's apex predators, what does that mean for their potential interactions with other species? With us? Keseth had been waiting for this question. I asked Dr. Vex directly. She said something that I think is crucial for understanding humanity. He played the recording. You want to know why we can cuddle death serpents? Isadora's voice was clear in the translation. It's because we learned, over thousands of years, that the things we feared most often became our greatest allies when we took the time to understand them. Dogs were wolves. Cats were wildcats. Horses were prey animals that could kill us with a kick. We domesticated them all by choosing cooperation over extermination. She had looked directly at the camera, as if she could see the council members who would eventually watch this. If you're wondering whether humans can coexist peacefully with aliens who are fundamentally different from us, creatures that might seem scary or incomprehensible, look at our history. We've been doing it with our own planet's species for millennia. Why would we stop now? The recording ended. The council members looked at each other, each processing this information through their own cultural frameworks. There's one more thing, Keseth said quietly. Dr. Vex made a request. She wants to meet more of us. She wants to share what she knows about building bridges between different species. She believes her work with death serpents has prepared her for interspecies diplomacy. A human wants to teach us about coexistence? Mivran sounded almost offended. A human, Keseth corrected, who has spent her life befriending creatures that would terrify most of this council. Yes, I think we should listen. After hours of debate, the vote was close but decisive. The council would invite Dr. Isadora Vex to the Nexus Station as Earth's first, and currently only representative to the galactic community. What could possibly go wrong? The arrival. The Nexus Station had hosted dignitaries from thousands of worlds, but never had the arrival of a single being caused such a stir. Security protocols were revised 17 times. Medical teams prepared quarantine procedures. And Commander Ziwaxthar personally inspected the quarters prepared for humanity's first ambassador. She's bringing specimens, Talindra reported, her feathers bristling with barely contained anxiety. 5 death serpents. She claims they're essential for her presentation to the council. Absolutely not, Mivran declared. We cannot allow such creatures on the station. What if they escape? What if they reproduce? They're in secure transport containers, Keseth assured him, though he was secretly just as nervous. And Dr. Vex has agreed to keep them in a specially constructed habitat in her quarters. They won't be allowed in common areas without explicit permission and supervision. When Isadora's transport docked, nearly every screen in the station was tuned to the arrival bay. Beings from across the galaxy watched as the airlock cycled and the door opened to reveal Earth's representative. Isadora wore formal attire for the occasion, what humans called a pantsuit in deep blue, with her credentials displayed on a lanyard around her neck. She carried a single bag over her shoulder and pulled a hover cart loaded with 5 transparent containers, each clearly labeled with biohazard warnings and scientific designations. She also wore the biggest smile Keseth had ever seen on a human face. "Dr. Vex," he greeted her, his bioluminescence pulsing a warm welcome. "Your journey was smooth?" "Incredible," she breathed, looking around the docking bay with undisguised wonder. The fold space translation felt like being turned inside out in the best possible way. "And this station, the architecture alone is worth 100 dissertations." She noticed the crowd of onlookers keeping a careful distance, and her smile widened. "I see my reputation precedes me." "They're afraid of the serpents," HFY admitted. "Good," Isadora said cheerfully. "Healthy fear is the foundation of healthy respect. Come on, let's get my baby settled in, and then you can show me around this magnificent station." The specially prepared quarters were larger than necessary. The council had erred on the side of caution, wanting the Death Serpents contained in as much space as possible. Isadora whistled appreciatively as she entered. "This is bigger than my apartment back home," she said. "The snakes are going to love it." She began setting up the habitat with practiced efficiency, explaining each step to Keseth and HFY, who had volunteered to assist. Talindra adamantly refused to be in the same room. "This is Pharaoh," Isadora said, carefully transferring a golden-colored serpent from its transport container to a large terrarium. "Ball python about 6 years old. He's my emotional support animal, believe it or not." "Emotional support?" Keseth questioned. "Humans can get anxiety, depression, stress-related disorders. Some of us find that caring for animals helps." Pharaoh's calm presence, his regular feeding schedule, the routine of maintaining his habitat. "It gives structure to my life and helps me manage stress." She moved on to the next container. "This beautiful lady is Scheherazade, Sherry for short. She's a boa constrictor and she's a rescue. Someone bought her as a baby without understanding how large she'd get. When she reached 2 meters they tried to release her in a park. Completely wrong climate, would have died in weeks." The story continued with each serpent. Azul, an indigo snake rescued from a breeding mill. Cypher, a corn snake with unusual pattern mutations that made him undesirable in the pet trade. And finally, Medusa, a green tree python whose previous owner had neglected her, leaving scars that Isadora was helping to heal. "Each one has a story," HFY observed. "You remember all of them?" "Of course I do. They're not just specimens or pets. They're individuals with personalities, preferences, histories." Isadora gently stroked Medusa's emerald scales. "This girl doesn't like being handled much. Her previous owner was rough with her. But she'll tolerate brief contact if I approach slowly and let her come to me. She's learning to trust again." Keseth found himself deeply moved by this. In Luminar culture, animals were categorized purely by function: food source, threat, or ecological necessity. The idea of investing emotional energy in non-sentient creatures, especially dangerous ones, was foreign. "Why do you do this?" he asked. "The rescue work. You could study healthy specimens much more easily." Isadora was quiet for a moment, watching Medusa coil around a branch. "Because they can't speak for themselves. Because humans caused most of their problems: habitat destruction, illegal trade, climate change. We owe them better. And because..." She paused, searching for words. "Because teaching people that even a damaged, scared, scarred death serpent can heal and thrive, that teaches them something important about the world. About resilience. About second chances. And you hope to teach us the same lesson?" HFY guessed. "Maybe." Isadora smiled. "Or maybe you'll teach me. That's what exchange means, right? Mutual learning." As if on cue, Keseth's communicator chimed. The council had assembled and was ready for Dr. Vex's presentation. Isadora took a deep breath, gave each of her serpents a final check and squared her shoulders. "Well, gentlemen, shall we go show the galaxy that death serpents are just snakes with a marketing problem?" Despite his nervousness, Keseth found himself laughing, a sound his species rarely made. This human, he thought, might just change everything. If the council didn't panic first. The presentation. The Grand Council chamber was designed to accommodate the diverse physiologies of galactic civilization. Gravity fields could be adjusted per section, atmospheric compositions varied, and seating ranged from traditional chairs to crystalline pedestals to suspension tanks. Today every seat was filled. Word had spread about the human who cuddled death serpents, and representatives who rarely attended general sessions had made exceptions. The gallery was packed with observers, their translation devices creating a low hum of anticipation. Isadora stood at the central podium, her heart racing but her expression calm. Behind her, A massive holographic display awaited her presentation. To her left, in a specially constructed transparent enclosure, Pharaoh lay coiled peacefully, a living demonstration of humanity's relationship with these feared creatures. Commander ZYX Thar called the session to order. Representatives of the Galactic Council, we gather today to hear from Dr. Isadora Vex of Earth. Her species seeks to join our community, and she comes to address our concerns about her planet's compatibility with galactic safety standards. Polite applause rippled through the chamber, though Isadora noticed many beings kept considerable distance from the podium. "Thank you, Commander," she began, her voice steady and clear. "I understand you've classified Earth as a potential threat due to our fauna. Specifically, you're concerned about what you call Death Serpents, creatures my species knows as snakes. I'm here today to offer a different perspective." The holographic display activated, showing a timeline of Earth's history. 400 million years ago, the first reptiles emerged. 300 million years ago, the first true serpents appeared. They've been perfecting their survival strategies for longer than mammals have existed. They're not evil. They're not malicious. They're just extraordinarily good at what they do. She showed images of snakes in various ecosystems. Desert sidewinders, aquatic sea snakes, arboreal tree pythons, subterranean blind snakes. Snakes occupy every continent except Antarctica. They've adapted to nearly every environment Earth offers. They range from 10 centimeters to 10 meters. Some are venomous, some are constrictors, some are harmless. And yes, some are dangerous to humans. Ambassador Thelia's crest rippled nervously. "Then you acknowledge the threat they pose?" "I acknowledge that they're capable of causing harm," Isadora corrected. "But capability doesn't equal intent. Let me share some statistics that might surprise you." The display changed to show numerical data. Approximately 5.4 million snake bites occur globally each year. Of those, around 2.7 million result in envenomation. Fatal bites? Between 81,000 and 138,000 annually. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Those numbers seemed astronomical. "Now consider," Isadora continued, "that Earth's human population exceeds 8 billion. That means your chance of dying from a snake bite in any given year is approximately 0.0017%. You're more likely to die from a lightning strike, a bee sting, or choking on food. Far more likely to die in a vehicle accident or from cardiovascular disease." She let that sink in before continuing. "Despite sharing our planet with hundreds of dangerous snake species for our entire existence as a species, humans have not only survived, we've thrived. Not because we eliminated the threat, but because we learned to coexist with it." The hologram shifted to show ancient human civilizations. "My ancestors worshipped snakes, feared them, studied them, and eventually began to understand them. We developed antivenoms. We created protocols for safe encounters. We established protected habitats. And some of us," she gestured to Pharaoh, "chose to make them part of our families." "This is madness," Mivron muttered, loud enough for the translation matrix to pick up. "Is it?" Isadora challenged. "Let me tell you about Dr. Jose Maria Gutierrez, a human scientist who has saved thousands of lives through his research on snake venoms. He developed improved antivenoms by studying the very creatures you fear. Or Dr. Brian Fry, who discovered that venom components can be used to treat heart disease, diabetes, and pain management. Snake venom, Death Serpent toxin, is now being used to heal humans." She clicked to a new image showing various medications. Captopril, a blood pressure medication used by millions, was derived from the venom of the Brazilian pit viper. Eptifibatide, used to prevent heart attacks, comes from the southeastern pygmy rattlesnake. Exenatide, a diabetes treatment, was developed from Gila monster venom, not a snake, but you get the idea. The council members were leaning forward now, their fear momentarily overridden by curiosity. "We turned what could kill us into what could heal us," Isadora said softly. "That's what humans do. We don't just survive danger, we study it, understand it, and find ways to make it work for us rather than against us." She approached Pharaoh's enclosure. Several council members visibly recoiled. "This is Pharaoh. He's a ball python, a constrictor species from West Africa. In the wild, his species helps control rodent populations that would otherwise destroy crops and spread disease. In captivity, he's taught thousands of people, through educational programs I've conducted, that snakes aren't monsters. They're animals with specific behaviors, needs, and ecological roles." Isadora opened the enclosure. The chamber erupted in warning cries and alarmed buzzes. I'm going to demonstrate something now, she said calmly, reaching in to gently lift Pharaoh. I want you all to watch closely. Pharaoh wrapped around her arm in a loose coil, his tongue flicking out to taste the air. His body moved with fluid grace, muscles rippling beneath glossy scales. He showed no signs of aggression, no striking position, no defensive coiling, no stress behaviors. Do you see? Isadora asked. He's not attacking. He's not even nervous. He knows me, trusts me, and understands that I'm not a threat. This is what's possible when you approach something feared with knowledge and respect instead of weapons and hatred. The decision. Silence filled the chamber as Isadora stood with Pharaoh draped across her shoulders. The serpent, seemingly oblivious to being the center of galactic attention, had found a comfortable position and appeared to be dozing. I know what you're thinking, Isadora continued. That I'm an exception. That most humans don't interact with snakes this way. And you're partially right. Not everyone keeps snakes as companions. But here's what's universal. We've made the choice as a species not to exterminate them. She walked slowly along the podium, Pharaoh's weight familiar and comforting. We have the technology. We could have wiped out every venomous species decades ago. We have weapons that could sterilize entire continents. But we didn't. Do you know why? Dr. Keseth, who had heard this explanation before, still found himself leaning forward. Because we learned, through painful experience, that every species, no matter how dangerous it seems, plays a role in the ecosystem we all depend on. Remove the snakes and rodent populations explode. Rodents destroy crops, spread diseases, and outcompete other species for resources. The balance collapses. We learned that you can't just eliminate the things that scare you without consequences. She returned Pharaoh to his enclosure, sealing it carefully before facing the council again. You're afraid of admitting Earth to the galactic community because you think we're reckless, that we can't assess risk properly, that we're too comfortable with danger. I'm telling you the opposite is true. We understand risk better than species from safer worlds because we've been managing it longer. Ambassador Thelia spoke, her voice thoughtful rather than fearful. Dr. Vex, your presentation has been enlightening. But I must ask, if we allow Earth to join the galactic community, how can we be certain that humans won't bring similar chaos to our worlds? Won't approach situations with the same recklessness you show toward Death Serpents? That's a fair question, Isadora acknowledged. Let me answer it with another question. Has anyone on this council ever been bitten by Pharaoh? Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. Of course not, Mivran said. We've stayed far away from it. Exactly. You assessed the risk, determined it was unacceptable to you, and maintained a safe distance. That's responsible risk management. Isadora smiled. I'm closer because I have knowledge and experience you lack. But I'm not forcing anyone to interact with him. I respect your boundaries just as I respect Pharaoh's. She pulled up a final holographic image, humans and aliens working together in what appeared to be a research facility. The image was clearly a mock-up, a possibility rather than reality. This is what I envision for our future together. Humans bring our experience managing high-risk environments. You bring your knowledge of thousands of worlds and cultures. Together, we could solve problems neither of us could tackle alone. Arwexpel stood, his crystalline structure catching the light. I would like to add something to Dr. Vex's presentation. He projected new data. I've been analyzing human conflict resolution patterns. In their history, humans have fought devastating wars. They've nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. But they've also developed unprecedented systems for peace, international law, diplomatic protocols, collaborative science, cultural exchange programs. He highlighted specific examples: the United Nations, the International Space Station, global pandemic response networks, climate agreements. They learned to cooperate despite fundamental differences in ideology, culture, and biology. If humans can make peace with other humans, beings who are actually competing for the same resources and territory, imagine what they could accomplish working with species they have no reason to compete with. Commander Ziwaxthar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You make compelling arguments, both of you. However, the Council must consider precedent. If we admit Earth based on potential rather than proven galactic compatibility, we open ourselves to claims from other probationary species. Then test us, Isadora said immediately. Give us a challenge. A problem that demonstrates whether humans can work productively with galactic species. Let us prove ourselves rather than asking you to take our word for it. The Council members exchanged glances, telepathic signals, and pheromone communications. Finally, Ambassador Thelia spoke. There is a situation that might serve this purpose. The agricultural colony on Verdentia 3 is experiencing crop failures. The cause is an invasive species, a small reptilian creature that has no natural predators on that world. They've tried elimination programs, but the creatures breed too quickly. The colony faces starvation within 6 months. Isadora's eyes lit up. You need someone who understands predator-prey dynamics. Someone who knows how to introduce biological controls without disrupting the existing ecosystem. Precisely. And it must be done without harming the invasive species. They're protected under our ethical treatment protocols, as they're only invasive due to our own carelessness in bringing them to Verdentia 3. I accept, Isadora said without hesitation. Give me a team, mixed human and galactic researchers. We'll solve your problem. Dr. Vex, Keseth interjected gently, you don't even know what species is causing the issue. Doesn't matter. The principles are the same. Understand the organism's behavior, identify natural population controls, implement solutions that work with nature rather than against it. She grinned. It's exactly what we've been doing with snakes, and everything else on Earth, for thousands of years. The council voted. The result was far from unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth would receive provisional status. Dr. Isadora Vex would lead a joint task force to Verdentia 3. Success would open the path to full galactic citizenship. Failure would confirm Earth's quarantine. As the session adjourned, Isadora returned to Pharaoh's enclosure. She pressed her hand against the glass, and the serpent, as if sensing her mood, uncoiled and moved toward her palm. Well, buddy, she whispered, looks like we're about to show the galaxy what Death Serpent diplomacy really looks like. In the observation gallery, beings from 100 worlds watched the human and her serpent, and for the first time, some of them felt something other than fear. They felt hope. 6 months later. The Verdentia 3 crisis was resolved in 4 months using a combination of human ecological knowledge and galactic technology. Isadora's team introduced a carefully selected predator species that controlled the invasive population without eliminating it, restoring balance to the colony's agriculture. Earth received full galactic citizenship. Dr. Isadora Vex became humanity's chief ambassador for environmental and biological matters. And Pharaoh became the most famous Death Serpent in the galaxy. Proof that understanding, not fear, was the key to coexistence. When asked how she knew her methods would work on an alien world, Isadora smiled and said, because whether you're dealing with snakes on Earth or invasive reptiles on Verdentia 3, the fundamental principle is the same. Every creature is just trying to survive. Once you understand that, everything else is just details. Commander Zhuangthar, who had become an unlikely friend, asked her one final question. Do you think you could teach a Luminar to handle a Death Serpent? Isadora's grin was radiant. Keseth, I thought you'd never ask. And in the carefully controlled habitat of the Nexus Station's new Xenobiological Research Center, a crystalline being took his first hesitant steps toward befriending a creature his species had feared for generations. Because if humans could cuddle Death Serpents, maybe the rest of the galaxy could learn to do the same.